Bonjour, voici vidéo 13C sur la négation. This is a little bit of a révision, a little bit of a review because we've used the negation already quite a bit. So if you'll just look at the top of that section, 201, à la page 201, remember that our negative expressions so far are ne pas, ne point, not at all, ne plus, no longer, ne jamais, never, ne guère, scarcely or hardly, ne, ni, neither, nor. And let's add one. They've used it a little bit in the book, but not a lot. Go ahead and add this in to your list there. Ne rien, R-I-E-N, and that is nothing. Ne rien, nothing. That's a good one to add. Tournez la page. Remember that when you have a negation and you're using an indefinite article or a partitive article, the un or une or the du, de, la, des, de, L apostrophe becomes de in the negation. Remember we talked about this. Pas de. Pas de. If you have j'ai des chocolats, because you know I always like to talk about chocolate. I have some chocolates, and I'm going to make that negative. I don't have any. This is what I'm talking about. Je n'ai pas. That day becomes de, and that equals any, what we would say any in English. Je n'ai pas de chocolat. I don't have any chocolates. So remember that. That's very important. Whenever you're using an un, an une, or any form of the du, de, la, des, then it becomes de after the negation. Your syllabus says to do exercise J. We're just going to do a few from J, then we're going to do a few from K and a few from L. So I'm adding a few, but I'm also taking away a few, so it won't be much longer than it normally would have been. But I think it's worth it to do a few out of each of these exercises. So let's look at exercice J, les possessions. Here's a list of some of Annette's possessions. Pierre compares his list to hers and finds that he has the first object but not the second. So we have un vélo, bicycle, une voiture, car. And he's going to say, j'ai un vélo, mais je n'ai pas de voiture. And here's that example of that partitive. The indefinite article that goes to the de when you use pas. So let's go with two of these, number 1 and 2, une guitare, un piano. So Pierre is going to say, j'ai une guitare, mais je n'ai pas de piano. Okay, out of room. Je n'ai pas de piano. Numéro 2. Une machine à écrire, that's a typewriter. Un micro-ordinateur, and that's a computer. So he says, j'ai une machine à écrire, mais je n'ai pas, again, same thing, je n'ai pas de micro-ordinateur. And I'm just going to abbreviate, not enough room. Okay, let's do one more because this one's a plural. Numéro 3, des disques, des cassettes. Des disques are records, and des cassettes are, of course, cassette tapes. So he says, j'ai des disques, mais je n'ai pas de cassette. I don't have any cassettes. Okay? So here he would say, I don't have a piano, I don't have a computer. But notice when it's plural, we would say, I don't have any cassettes. Alrighty, so that's using de after the negation, ne pas. That would work with any negation, but it's more commonly after, you just use ne pas more commonly. So, alright, what happens when we have a verb in the passé composé? Where does that ne pas go? You know, we have to have that ne pas sandwich. But if you have a passé composé verb, you have two verbs, a conjugated verb and a past participle. remember that that ne pas goes around the conjugated verb, so it's going to go around that auxiliary verb, either the avoir or the être, in the passé composé. So there's an example there. Je n'ai jamais visité le Louvre. I have never visited the Louvre. And that ne jamais goes around the et, the avoir conjugated part of the sentence. So let's look at exercice K. Pourquoi pas, ces personnes ne font pas certaines choses. Expliquez pourquoi en employant le passé composé des verbes dans les expressions entre parenthèses. So we're going to explain why they don't do certain things by using the passé composé of the verbs in the expressions in parentheses. André ne réussit pas à comprendre. And why is that? Il n'a pas étudié. He doesn't succeed in understanding because he has not studied. He did not study. Numéro 1. Tu ne réponds pas au professeur. Why? You don't answer the professor because you didn't hear the question. Okay, entendre. So you need tu. It's an avoir verb. N'a pas. Entendre goes to entendu because it is a regular art. That's a U. Entendu because it's a regular RE verb. Tu n'as pas entendu la question. Or whatever it was. Yeah. Numéro 2. Nous ne gagnons pas d'argent. We don't earn any money. Why? Because you don't work. So, or we, I'm sorry, nous ne gagnons pas, so it's we. We didn't work. Nous n'avons pas, and then travailler. Regular ER verb, so you have an accent aigu. Okay, ne pas goes around the conjugated verb. Let's do one more. Numéro 3. Les touristes ne voyagent pas en train. Acheter de billets. So why don't they travel on trains? They didn't buy tickets. They didn't buy any tickets in this case. So les touristes, ils n'ont pas acheté de billets. They didn't buy any tickets, that's why they can't go on the train. Okay, so again, this lesson we're just emphasizing that ne pas is going around this conjugated verb. It does not go around the whole passé composé. The past participle, this part, is outside of the ne pas sandwich. Okay, it's the side of fries or the bag of chips. All right, one more, and that is what happens when we want to make an infinitive negative. This doesn't come up very often, but it does occasionally, where we would want to make the infinitive and not the conjugated verb negative. So let's look what we do here. We use ne pas, or ne plus, ne jamais, ne rien, whatever it is, directly in front of the infinitive. So some examples there on the top of page 203. Il est content de ne pas travailler. He's happy not to work. We might say to not work. Elle tient à ne plus revenir. She insists on no longer returning. Ma mère a décidé de ne jamais voyager seule. My mother has decided to never to travel alone. I would say to never travel alone, but I guess that's a split infinitive, isn't it? Une personne sceptique semble ne rien croire. A skeptical person seems to believe nothing. So again, all you're doing is simply leaving that ne pas together and placing it directly in front of the infinitive. So let's do a few from exercice L, and then we'll be done. Janine est troublée car elle a tendance à commettre les mêmes péchés. She's troubled because she has a tendency to commit the same sins. Vous pouvez l'aider à prier en mettant le verbe à la forme négative. Variez la forme selon le cas. You can help her by praying to pray by putting the verbs into the negative form. So mentir, and you're saying, help me to not lie. Aide-moi à ne pas mentir. Okay? Négliger la lecture de ma Bible. So she doesn't want to neglect reading her Bible. So we're going to pray, aide-moi. That's going to just start our little sentence here. Help me, aide-moi, de, and then our negation goes together, de ne pas négliger, and that stays in the infinitive. Help me to not neglect to study. Okay? Numéro 2, désobéir à mes parents. So help me to not disobey my parents. So again, it's going to be aide-moi de ne pas désobéir à mes parents. Help me to not disobey. Right? One more, oublier de prier. So again, it would be aide-moi de ne pas oublier de prier. Help me to not forget to pray. Okay, again, pretty straightforward. You're just going to set that ne pas right in front of the infinitive in each case. And that is how you negate that infinitive with the ne pas or ne rien or a ne jamais. That could be any infinitive. We only use ne pas, but of course it could be any infinitive. I'm sorry, any negation that you can do that with the infinitive. All right, that concludes this lesson. Au revoir.